All right, here we are. We're in week 6 of database development design course, and this is our lab 5 walkthrough. I'm going to walk you through the lab here using SQL Server. Uh, if you are not a student of my class and you want to follow along, I do have a link. I'll put it in the description to my website. You can follow down. You can get the lab 5 download file here. Right down here. It's going to come as a .text, so when you get it, you're going to have to save it, then change it to .sql, .sql. So just to see, show you here, SQL. Okay, so we got our SQL Server going here. We don't get the file, so the first thing you do is you're going to open your file, go to Open, make sure you go to File, not Project or Solution, just go to File, wherever you saved your file to, and open up your Lab 5 there, and you'll get this code here. Now, I always recommend you do this at the beginning of all your SQL. It's one line that'll save you a lot of headache. Just use and pick the database you're going to be working out of. You'll notice you can also do it from a drop down here, and I could pick, but in like production systems, this drop down list can be huge. It's just a good habit. Plus, whoever you send it to, they know which database you're working on. So you just run that first code, and there we go. Okay, so the rest of the code is going to fail because we're not done yet. This is a lab, so we're going to have to make changes to it. Okay, so what can we do here? So the first question here we're looking at creating tables. And if you didn't do this, I'll put the link down in the description for my creating tables lecture. You can go ahead and look at, and it'll give you how to create tables, data types, the whole thing. So this one here, we've got the structure down. Create table, student info. We've got 3 columns, student ID, student name, birth date. We just need to put in a data type. And we want to make sure that the first one's going to be our primary key. We all remember primary keys. We use those as part of the relational database. The primary key is going to be a unique identifier that identifies a table, a row in a table. So again, with the student ID, think about your G number at the school or a driver's license number, social security number, anything that would be a unique identifier to your number here. So for student ID, we're going to make it an integer just because I want to. Wouldn't work for our G numbers. They need a G, but I'm just going to be lazy to make it an integer. And then to make it a primary key, all I have to do is type in the phrase primary key. Student name, I'm going to make this an nvarchar. And we use nvarchar because this allows us more characters than you get to a standard varchar. And, what's a name? Maybe 100 characters if you get like a really long name. Some people, certain cultures get some pretty cool long names in there. And then for birth date, all we want is the date. We don't care about the times. We're just going to put a date. All right. So now we've done it. So now we're going to create a table called stud info student. And you're asking, why is this red? Why is this squiggly line here? Because it doesn't exist. Because we haven't built it yet. So it wouldn't exist. So anyway, we're going to run this and go ahead. You go there and just hit execute. Okay, cool. So command completed successfully. So now go over here and check out your database. Go over to your database. I'll show you something real quick here. We open it up, my tables. And this is the database I'm working on here. It matches this one. As you can see, it's the database up here. And it did go through. Student info went through. And so sometimes it doesn't. I'll show you when it doesn't. We'll show that next. So the next one here, we're going to alter the table below. So the student ID is an identity column as well. Everything else kind of looks unique as to what we had up here, right? Primary key, but we want an identity column. If you remember, identity is an auto numbering system. So it numbers the system we want, and we have to have 2 fields. So identity goes, first thing you have to remember with identity, you have to first identify the data type. And then identity doesn't automatically make you a primary key. So you'll still have to identify as a primary key. And in the middle, you'll put identity. And then we put up our parentheses. And there's 2 things we need to concern ourselves with identity. What they are is they're the start number and the step. So if I start with 1 and I step by 1, then this is going to automatically go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going to count up. If I start with 1 and I go 2, it's going to go 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. If I start with 100, and I go by 50s, it's going to go 100, 150, 200. That's how it's going to go. So normally I just set 1, 1, and we'll call it a day. So then we've got that set, student ID V1, and let's go ahead and we'll run this. That's everything we need to change this. So step 2, all we do is add the identity. Go to execute. Again, we successfully executed. Now notice you don't see the student info V1 here, even though we added the table. Sometimes what you have to do is you have to go down, right click on your database and hit refresh. Okay. Once that happens, open up your tables again, and now you will see it. And you can look in there, your tables, and you can see. Okay. Now you notice it points out there's a primary key. You notice you can't tell the difference between the stud ID here and the identity doesn't actually appear in this information. You'll know it when you try to add values to it, it'll break. So just keep in mind, you're not going to see that on the side there when you're looking at these. Okay. So I want to add, next column we're going to make is I want to add a column to this table, student info. I want to name it GPA, grade point average, and make the column a decimal of, with the value with 3.2. And for that means people, you don't know, it's 3 digits across, it's 2 behind the decimal point, kind of how you'd want a GPA, 4.01 or something like that. So we start by, if we want to change an existing table, we have to alter the table. So we alter the table, name the table stud info, and then we just want to add a column. Now the cool thing about adding columns is you don't have to actually put the word column in. Sorry, let's get down here. You just have to go down here and type in add. Then let's name our column GPA and give it a value, decimal 3.2. Okay. So I'll get rid of that. And notice you don't SQL. I do these separate lines because it makes it easier for me to read. This is more like just good stylization, but you can make this a single line. It'll work. So if I go up here and make this one line, it's still going to work. Still going to go there. I'm going to run this. It will work successfully. Just if I'd run it like that. And now we go here to our student table here, and you're going to see the column doesn't exist. So again, we have to do that refresh trick. It's a little glitchy pain in the butt that Microsoft has never seemed to have fixed, but it is what it is. So now when I do that, now you'll see the new column in there, and it's GPA decimal. All right. So now I want to alter the GPA column. So I've got the column already exists. I want to change the data type. I want to make it an invarchar 4, okay, instead of a number. So again, I'd start the same way, alter table student info, but now I have to say alter column because now it's existent. Instead of just adding something, I'm altering something that exists. So I have to alter a column, name the column, and then give it a value here. Varchar 4. Okay. Run this. Oops, sorry guys, I hit the wrong button up there. Apparently I hit it twice. All right, let's go back to where it was. Let's get rid of these. I don't need this one. Yeah, close. Don't need this one. Yeah. Okay, anyway, so back here, alter the column. Let's go back up here, right click, and you can just execute. You can hit F5 to execute. And again, we're not going to see it unless we refresh. Refresh. Go back, tables, student info, columns, and now you'll see it's an nvarchar. Okay, so far successfully we've created 2 tables, one with an identity, which is an auto number. Remember, this identity is going to auto number. It's going to start with 1 and step up 1 each time. Then we've added a column, and we've changed the column, what's in it. Okay, now we want to do is we want to run this following insert statement and view the results. So check this out. We're inserting info into an existing table. So I'm going to say insert into student info. And below I've got values. Notice the values of the keyword. And then each thing in a parentheses is a record. So this is one record. This is one. We're going to create 2 records. And you notice I've got values for the student ID, the name, their birth date, and I've got their GPA. So I have values for all 4 columns. So I can just shake this, I can execute. And now if I go and I do a select from, you're going to see there they went. Okay, both values went in. So now if I run the following statement, I want you to notice something different here. Partly, it's the same table we're going into, but here, Notice I've added a new section here. Up here, I didn't put the names of the columns I wanted. I didn't have to because I had a value for every single column. Here I do not. Notice I do not have a birthday. So I've got a value, I've got Scooby, and I've got his GPA. I do not have a value for his birth date. So if I tried to run this without putting the column information in, it wouldn't know where to do it. It'd say, whoa, 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 this, it would just try to go right across here for the third. The third value, as you can see, is a date. This 4.0 is not going to work. It's going to fail. So I'm telling it not to put anything in to the birthday. So that's how we do this. That's why we're adding these three values here. That's why we're adding these in the parentheses above. Then we add the values. So if I run this, we can actually run both these at the same time and just run the command. And you will see now I got the values, and the birth date gives me a null value. Again, if I had not put this up top, this would have failed, and it would have told me that this is not a date. I can't put that in as a date range. Okay. Move on to the next one. All right. So I will need to fix the following insert statement so it works. All right. Hint, student ID is an identity column in this table. Remember, we made this an identity column. So let's just try running this first and see what happens. Okay. Cannot. Now, keep in mind, if I tried running this in in student info, this would work. Okay, watch. If I go in student info, this will work, no problem. It'll work. I can run it. And if I go look back at student info, I will have two new rows here. Okay. Except these two rows have no GPA in this, so okay. Because remember, we never added a GPA column to student info V1, which is what we're working on, but it's failing on V1. Why is it failing on V1? Well, V1 is an identity. So what that means is that this column here, this row, student ID, remember we created it as an identity column. We cannot tell it what value it has to be. It knows it needs to make the identity. Yes, there is a way you can shut off identity and force it. I'm not going to get into that right now, but by default, when identity insert is set to off, we cannot do that. And here, see the whole, show you the whole error code. Cannot insert explicit value for identity column in the table when identity insert is set to off. Identity insert is set to off. That's a value you could set if you want to be able to manually do this to identity. We're not going to. So what we're going to do instead here, back, and we're going to fix it. So how do we fix it? Well, we fix it by just not giving a value for that. We get rid of the first value in each of them, each of our value pairs here, and then we get rid of the student ID from the columns we want to populate, and we run this. Now if I run this and I execute, now it'll work, and if I want to see it worked, I just go down here to select, if I could spell it would work even better, select star from stud info v1, okay? Okay, so you see it. So that 1 and 2 were automatically populated by our identity columns. Watch, I run this. If I run this again, if I run this a second time, check this out. Okay, 2 rows affected again. Now I run this. Good. So now you see I've got it. Scooby, Shaggy, Scooby, Shaggy. See, I can put, these can be duplicates because they're not the primary key. Only the primary key can't be a duplicate. And notice the identity column, make sure that's not the case. It gives me a new value each time. For each row gets a new value. Okay, so that's the identity column. All right, now let's go ahead. Let's create this table below here. It's called grades. It's got a grade ID with an identity primary key, class name in varchar, grade in varchar, and student ID integer. So I'm going to run this. Commands are run successfully. And again, if I go back here now and I refresh and I look at my tables, there you go. There's grades. If I open it up, you'll see I've got grade ID, class name, grade, student. So that's it. So we created that table. And now, looking at the slide deck, or if you look at the lesson video, I've got the link for below. We're going to figure out how we want to make this student ID the foreign key to our table stud info v1, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we've created the table. The table exists. So if we want to make any changes to the table, we have to alter. We have to write alter table in the name of the table. Now we want to set this up so it recognizes that student ID in this table is now a foreign key to the primary key of stud ID in the stud info v1 table. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down the next line again. Remember, this could all be on one line, but we're going to do it on the next just because. We're going to say add foreign key. And then we type in the name that we want the foreign key to be. So the foreign key is going to be is from our table. It's from the grades table. So that's going to be student ID. Okay, that's our foreign key. Okay, so we say add foreign key, and then we say, well, what's the foreign key? What does the foreign key relate to? Well, it references the table stud info v1, and it references the column or field stud ID. Okay, so we're saying alter table grades because we have to start it from that way. So we go grades is going to be our foreign key. We're going to convert this to a foreign key. Alter grades, add a foreign key. Name our foreign key is this column that's there, student info, and then we're going to we have to tell it what it references now. So it references the stud ID v1 table with the stud ID. Okay, so we execute that because this stud ID is the primary key, the info table. Remember that up here. That's the primary key. So here we go. We just did this. So now when we go over here now, nothing's changed yet. But when I check this out, when I go refresh again, I go to my tables and I look back at our columns with our grades. Now you'll see an FK there. See, that's a foreign key. You see another key. You notice the black key is the primary, the 4, and that tells you this is a key related to another table. And I'll show you something cool in the next couple of steps. We're going to cause a failure because of this. All right. So now, we went over in the lesson also, we covered delete, truncate, and drop. These three ways of getting rid of data or objects, and they're all a little different. So let's go ahead, let's start. Choosing between delete, truncate, and drop, run the command that removes any records with a null value for a birthday. So, records with a null value. So this is telling me, that right there tells me we've got a where clause, all right? What are we doing? We have a where clause. Which one works with a where clause? Drop? No. Drop gets rid of objects. Drop gets rid of things like tables, views, stored procedures, objects, physical objects. Truncate, not truncate. Truncate deletes all records from a table. All of them. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Every record is gone. Delete lets you choose which records to delete. That lets you use a where clause. So that's where we're going to come in. So we're going to go into here and we are going to get rid of the ones that have a null value for birthday. So which table actually? So I should add a little statement here. Using stud ID table. Okay. For questions below. All right. So let's go ahead and just take a look at our student ID table right now. See what we got here. Student select from stud ID. Okay. Run this and we say, oh, sorry, not the stud ID table, the stud info table. I'm sorry. Stud info. Let me fix this. All right, so we have down here 901 Scooby has no birthday, where there's a null value for the birthday. So we can get rid of that by saying, well, remember, first of all, let's do a where clause. Let's say where birthday, Now remember, for null, it's not equal to null. It's not like null. Instead, it is null. Okay? Where birthday is null, we execute that, and it returns the one value. So that's correct. We have the right where clause. So now what we got to do is, instead of select from, we're going to delete from student info where birthday is null. Execute. There we go. One row affected. That's what we wanted to hear. Then we say select star from stud info again. And we run this. Execute. There you go. That's gone. The 901 is gone. Okay. Now it's the next one. Let's check between our delete, truncate, and run the command that removes all records but maintains the table. Okay. So again, delete lets us delete whatever we want. If we have no where clause, it will delete everything. But because we have a where clause, so that's not it. Drop, again, drop kills an object. It gets rid of the objects. So the table itself will be gone. So we're going to go with truncate, because truncate gets rid of all the records but maintains the table. So truncate code is truncate table stud info. And if I run this now, and then I run this to see it, it's empty. There's nothing in the table. But you see the table still exists. The table's still there. So finally, we're going to choose between delete, truncate, and drop, run the command that completely removes the table from the database. Well, we know we're down to drop now. And the code is drop table stud info. And I run this. And now when I try to look at the table, invalid object. There's nothing called stud info. Watch, when I go to refresh now, check out my tables, stud info's gone. All right, but check this. One last thing to kind of just think about. Watch this. If I go drop table, stud info, v1, check out what happens now. Could not drop it because it's referenced by a foreign key in another table. So keep that in mind. If you have a foreign key referencing something, you can't just go ahead and randomly drop object. All right, so that's it for this one. Everything you need, just turn this in. Again, thanks a lot. I'll be looking forward to seeing you next week.